Welcome back to another video by Mr. Projects. Been down to the shops, got my hose clamps, T-pieces, transmission hose, vacuum hose, fuel filter, oil filter, coolant and some fuel. So gonna get this tank all sorted out, and then a few things to do on the list. I have to disconnect this because I've mucked up one of the wires and reconnect it properly. Put a bolt in the plenum. Time the motor before I even start it. Put coolant and oil, all that sort of stuff. Put the ECU in and then just get a battery and see if we can start this thing. I'll just probably pull the battery out of one of the cars around here and we'll see if we can get it going. But there's a few things to do before we can start it, so let's get into it.
You got four
Hit a brick wall.
4 lanes of idiots trying to
Got no dash lights at all. No start.
Yeah, and I wouldn't.
Well, it's now the next day. We just had problem after problem after problem after problem. I guess you get that when the car's been sitting around. So I didn't really film all that much because we were just having so much issues and it was just silly things. So what happened was put the fuel tank in and come up here, no fuel pressure. Why don't we have fuel pressure? Went back down, reversed the wires because it was blowing instead of sucking, and then I had fuel, so then I had to cut the wires, resolder them so we can get fuel. Then it wouldn't return because the return line was blocked, so we had to unblock that. Then we weren't getting cranking on the ignition. You'd turn the ignition, there was just no crank, no nothing. It was an earth problem. It took hours to figure it out. We thought it was a relay. And then we just added a few more earths and then it started to crank by the key. And then we got to the stage of trying to start it and we have no injector pulse, nothing. So that's where it left us last night after hours and hours and hours of trying. So I slept on it and we're going to start again today, and I'm going to hopefully just try and maybe just do a time lapse of it because there's a lot of standing around and trying to figure out what's actually happening. So that's an update on what's going on. I've added in all the lines. Everything's timed up, sort of, but it's good enough to start. Oil, everything, fuel, everything. So everything's good, except for the injectors will not pulse. No, it's not a CAS problem, so we'll try and figure that out. Don't know if it's a low battery or an earth problem because the injectors pulse via the ECU. When they get earthed out, they open up, so it's got to be something like that. But anyway, that's what happened yesterday. We got this far, cranked it over, it cranks over fine, couldn't get it to start. Bit of start your bastard, it popped a couple of times, that was about it. So we know it's a fuel problem, so we're going to try and figure that out. So after doing a little bit of research last night, I figured out I ended up deleting some earths, and I thought I'd just run this because this splices back into the loom. And normally that would go to there, and then this end would earth out onto the engine mount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that back in and see if we can get some pulse at the injectors. I have another Dizzy, so I'm just going to plug that in, turn this, and we should get injector pulse. And if we're still not getting injector pulse, I don't know what it's going to be, so I'm just going to keep trying. And so I'm going to add that on now. Just got to drill that out and add it on to here so I can bolt it through there, and then put that onto the engine mount and hopefully fix the problem. I've now been out here for hours trying to figure out what's wrong with this, and I've gone through 3 ECUs, put earths in. The only way I can get the injectors to tick is if I earth out this, but the battery's saying that it's low, so I put a jumper pack on it and I still can't get 12 volts at the ECU. It's about 9 volts. I think that's got a lot to do with why I'm not getting my injector pulse. So I'll charge this battery up, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to have to pull one out of the other cars and stick it in here and see if I can get some pulse. So we reckon it's sticky rings. You reckon it's sticky rings?
Sticky vagina.
Sticky vagina, because we're not getting much compression.
We're going to give it an enema.
An enema?
Yeah.
I'm going to put some kerosene down there and try and loosen up the rings apparently. This compression test is showing that might be the cause of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
And then what, just leave it there for a few hours
Yeah, at least.
and then compression test it again? Well, hopefully this fixes the compression problem. We're now making the dump pipe. It's been cut in half. Just going to put a little tack on that. And then happy days. Is that right? Happy days?
Something like that.
Yeah? Fucking beauty. That'll do. Big compression is coming back up.
If you're a faggot. Like the guy behind the camera.
Yeah, how good's that? Yeah. So the kerosene has brought the compression ratio up to 75. In 3 cylinders we were getting like 0, and now across the board we got 75. So seems to be working. We run the motor, let it warm up, let it cool down, took all the plugs out, checked it, everything's got 75. When before, a couple of cylinders had 0 compression, which makes us think it's got sticky rings. The motor was sitting around a long time. I never pulled the pistons out, so went down and got some diesel, and we're going to put the diesel in it
we're going to let it sit for a couple of days. Just keep topping it up and hopefully that'll loosen everything up. And once our compression gets up over 100 somewhere, we should be in the ballpark to have it run properly. And still unsure whether or not all the injectors are working, but it seems to be running on like 2 cylinders. But that might be due to the low compression. So put some diesel in it, we'll let it sit a few days and we'll see if it gets any better. That's going to end the video here. We're just going to put diesel in, leave it soak for a couple of days and hope the compression comes back up. At least we got the car running. And now we're just going to have to keep being persistent until we can get everything running properly. I still have a suspicion that some of the injectors aren't working. Still no idea why when you disconnect this we get injector pulse and when it's connected we don't. So if anyone knows why, leave a comment. I'd love to understand what's going on with that. But yeah, we're probably going to leave the video here. Last 2 days have just been hectic, so thanks for watching. The next video we will hopefully have full compression and get it running properly.